tonight, we're not talking about the slogan Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about exactly what the machine is behind the entire movement. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, the DOJ, and a mysterious missing pile of money. In 2020, after George Floyd's death, the National BLM organization says it pulled in over $90 million worth of donations. Fast forward to now, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, has opened a probe into whether the BLM leaders defrauded donors out of tens of millions of dollars, and federal agents have already issued subpoenas and at least one search warrant. This is not TikTok drama, guys. This is directly from the Associated Press and what they put into this whole alleged conspiracy. So right now, we're gonna peel back the layers. I'm gonna follow the money, exactly where it started from and where it went to. The Tides Foundation, to real estate, to a company called Trap Heals LLC, which just happens to be the baby daddy of one of the co-founders. Okay, I'm gonna lay out all the documentation. I'm gonna tell you things that are true, things that are not true, and allegations for the whole BLM movement. And you can decide whether this is a movement, a mismanaged nonprofit, or a complete 100% scam. Stick around. You just might learn something. First, we're gonna talk about the three things that we consider BLM. Okay, the hashtag movement, created in 2013 by Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi after the George Zimmerman verdict. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, a nonprofit fundraising part of the whole BLM movement, and a 5013C that was incorporated in 2017 in Delaware with a tax-exempt status effective December 2020. And third, the web-related entities, your local city, towns, the guys holding the signs, the kind of grassroots organizations of the BLM movement. So those are three arms of BLM. We got the ladies that founded it with the hashtag movement. You got the fundraising arm of the BLM, and then you got your grassroots that are in your cities and towns that you see in the corners and doing the local protests all over your city streets. Those are the three that we're gonna be discussing tonight. But when we talk about the $90 million, we're talking about the actual BLM Global Network Foundation and its partners. Not every grassroots protester that you see is part of that organization. It's a much bigger entity. So this is how you can see it, how it started, went from one to the other by the flowchart. The hashtag movement started, then the BLM GNF, and then the fiscal sponsors like Thousands Current and the Tides Foundation, which put all this together to make the organization and the BLM movement that we see today on television and at the riots, at protests, and all these political rallies that you see across the country. After the whole George Floyd riots thing that we had after his death, the BLM movement got really into full swing. And with the hashtag movement from these ladies and the movement and the foundation arm of the BLM Global Network, that's when the money started flying in by the droves. Now, by mid-2021, the filings and media reports show that about $42 million of the BLM leaders brought in net assets. $32 million was invested towards endowments and about $37 to $38 million spent on grants, real estate, staffing, and consulting. So they got a ton of money that they had liquid cash, and they invested it into other things, real estate and those types of things. Maybe a little in crypto too. We don't know. But they had a net gain of $42 million after all those donations that came in around 2021. So fast forward a little bit to 2025. The AP reports that the DOJ is investigating whether the BLM leaders defrauded its donors who gave tens of millions of dollars in 2020. Federal agents have issued all the subpoenas and have served at least one search warrant focusing on the BLM, GNF, and the allied groups of that whole organization. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, led by Bill Azalea, is running the entire probe. And as of now, no criminal charges have been developed for anyone in there. And BLM says they have done nothing wrong, that all their stuff is on the up and up, and there's nothing to see here. All this is going on while BLM GNF is suing the Soros Foundation, the Tides Foundation, for the $33 million that's missing and unaccounted for. Kind of strange, isn't it? But to be really clear, this is just an investigation. Nobody's been convicted, but you don't get federal subpoenas and search warrants over a typo on an organization like this. Investigators think there's enough smoke here to be looking for a little bit of fire with the whole BLM movement. This is a large organization, and it's even spread globally. So now the DOJ is starting to figure out where all this money went to, and if the claims that accusations that have been brought against the founders of this organization are true, we're going to talk about it. One of the most controversial vendors in the BLM tax filings is a company called Trap Heals LLC. Now, according to multiple outlets summarizing BLM's Form 990, the foundation paid about $969,000 to $970,000 to Trap Heals LLC for live production, design, and media, or creative services for the fiscal year June 2021. Here's the interesting part of that. Trap Heals is run by Damon Turner, an artist activist who is also the baby daddy of Patrisse Cullors' child. So Patrisse Cullors, who's a co-founder, paid her baby daddy $970,000, almost $1 million for production. So we're gonna look into Trap Heals for a minute here. So Trap Heals organization, as you can see here, it was created in 2020. And the total revenues at that time were $217,000, expenses $169,000, and they had 0 employees. 0 employees working at this organization during that time when it was created. I'm not saying anything is weird about that. I'm just saying it's something to look into because you've got somebody who's really connected to one of the co-founders. This organization wasn't even developed yet, getting paid almost $1 million. Trap Heals also has a sister organization that's based out of California, and that date was filed in 2020. But as you can see there, none of this stuff was created before the entire BLM movement. All these organizations and these entities were created years after the money started flowing in to the BLM Global Network Foundation. Besides Trap Heals LLC, BLM GNF, their Form 990s also show they paid $840,000 to Cullors' brother for professional security services. That's strange as well. So right now we've got her baby daddy and her brother making about $1.6 million between just those two guys alone. And the real estate properties they have are a little crazy as well. Reports from 2022, AP, LA Times, the Business Insider, etc., revealed the BLM GNF's purchases of a bunch of properties ranging from about $6 million property in Studio City. Look at that pool, with 6 bedrooms, a pool, and soundstage framed as a black artist retreat and media hub. Sounds a little fishy to me. A separate story, a $6.3 million Toronto property bought by Canadian nonprofit M44J, where Cullors' spouse was involved. That building was partially funded by BLM GNF. So the investment portfolio that the BLM group has is a little hanky. Later filings and watchdog analysis of the BLM GNF, with tens of millions invested in stocks, roughly $32 million in one reported year as part of an endowment rather than immediate community spending. So they got a bunch of money, they invested it in stocks, and didn't put any of those funds that they brought in for the $90 million back into the community or any of those grassroots organizations. Remember, the grassroots organizations from BLM, they kind of take care of themselves, just local chapters that fund themselves. The BLM GNF, the big kahuna of the whole BLM movement, is the one that gets all of this money, and the one that's buying properties, the one that's investing in stocks, the one that's hiring the baby daddy, hiring the brother to give them $1.6 million in funds that were donated by you. While local activists thought they were raising money for bail funds, families, community centers, a national foundation was buying real estate, investing in Wall Street, and cutting nearly $1 million checks to companies tied to the co-founder's family. BLM GNF has sued the Tides Foundation, claiming $33.4 million of its cash is being withheld, and that the Tides spent some of that money already, including $6 million and over $1 million in legal fees, while litigation continues. Okay, so the lawsuit says there was an oral argument that the Tides would hold and transfer donor money to the BLM GNF, and that the Tides commingled BLM funds with other projects, so the money became hard to trace. So they're saying it's there, they just can't figure out where it goes because they threw a whole bunch of money in one pot and now they're trying to figure out where it came from. The Tides counters that, says the funds were multi-Black-led initiatives, not exclusively for BLM GNF, and denies any type of wrongdoing. A trial in the case is reportedly scheduled for August 2026. But as you guys can see, a lot of this stuff is kind of hanky. This money that they're bringing in, the money that they're having, the money that they're developing is being suspiciously distributed amongst family members, stocks, and all that stuff. So it's weird. You see all this stuff coming up and you're realizing all the money that came in there, where did it go? DOJ might eventually bring up charges, or it might quietly close the entire file. But even if nobody goes to prison, this is already a case study of how a righteous cause can be wrapped up to make a really sloppy, really self-serving money management issue. If you donated, you have the right to ask, how much went to grants and victims' families? How much went to consultants? How much went to family businesses, real estate? And why does it take subpoenas, lawsuits, and an investigative reporter to get the basic answers from a group that promised transparency? Sounds strange to me. I think there's more stuff than to be peeled up and looked into, but if you look here in the recap of it, this is where all the money goes. 2020 donations, $90 million. Assets were $42 million. And alleged money is missing is $33.4 million. When you have an organization that raises that much money in such a short period of time, people have questions. Where did that money go? Who did it fund? When you're buying extravagant houses in the tune of $6 million, building studios in Canada in the tune of $6.1 million, a lot of questions have to be answered. When you're giving money to your brother, your baby daddy, and people like that in organizations that were funded and founded after the whole BLM movement started, makes you wonder, where did that money go? And is it really on the up and up? Well, that's it for tonight. Join me next time for a little chit chat, some observations, and some good old fashioned conversation. Thanks.